Today we're going to be working on this Atari Showcase 33 cabinet. In case you didn't know, Atari Showcase 33 cabinets came with a 33-inch monitor, which is how they got their name. This one has been reduced to a 27-inch monitor, which is unfortunate, though I don't actually know if those 33 inches were all that reliable, though this is a Wells Gardner D9200, so it can't be much less reliable than that, really, so we probably would have preferred to have the 33-inch. However, as you can see, what we're going to be doing with this is we're turning it into a fighting cabinet. This game has been turned into many different things. Most recently, it was a extreme hunting or whatever. As you can see, it's kind of burned into the CRT. I've done some testing. The CRT kind of works, but for now, we're going to start off with installing some new T-trim, as I think that's going to improve the look of this cabinet quite a good bit, and hopefully give me the inspiration to finish this machine up. It's only been sitting here in this arcade for over a year now, possibly coming on 2. Now this machine has possibly the most T-trim I've ever seen on a machine. We got these up and down pillars over here. We got all the way around the control panel. We have here, which goes all the way up that to there. Then we have around there, same thing on that side, across the top. And then the same thing is here on the back side. It is absolutely insanity. Plus, there's T-trim up and down there as well. I believe when I measured this, I needed 50-some feet of T-trim, so I ended up getting a roll of 80 foot because, well, it's black 3/4 inch. It's used in like everything, so I could use a little bit extra, and it really isn't that much. Black T-trim is rather cheap. So we're going to be putting that on because I think that'll go well with the white of the cabinet, so let's get started. Just by doing the podium, you can see the major difference that this is going to have. That looks absolutely fantastic. Ignore how this top control panel's done. We're going to probably redo that. I don't really like how that's done right now, but ignoring that, this looks absolutely amazing. Of course, the paint filled in, well, paint and probably some Bondo filled in a few of the actual T-trim slots, so you really can't pound it in everywhere. So, I got the T-trim cutting slot tool in this thing, and we're going to cut out those slots, so we'll just cut out the stuff that's in those slots, so we can actually put some T-trim in them. Now, with all the T-trim on, I've went ahead and put in the button I was missing here, and the plastic piece in here. That was a funny story of how I ended up getting the one extra button I needed. I ended up buying a complete set for that one button, because I couldn't find that just one button. I ordered a power supply for another cabinet, and they accidentally sent me someone else's order, which was 6 of these blue buttons. So, I guess I got my button, and then they also said they'll send me the power supply as well. So, yay, that's super awesome. We got the button I needed for free. Now, we need to get everything wired up. I got the Raspberry Pi. We have our joystick adapters to go from these buttons and joystick to the USB for the Raspberry Pi. And then I also have a little amplifier here that runs off of 1.8 to 12 volts. I'm not sure how loud it would get off 1.8 volts, but we should probably be able to run this off 5 volts to power our speakers. Now, we have a few choices of how we want to wire this thing. We could put the Raspberry Pi in this spot here and then run USB and all the, well, really, I guess just USB from here. Or I could put the Raspberry Pi in the pedestal and make it easy to get to, and then I'd have to run power and a VGA cable all the way to the monitor, and audio. I don't know which is going to be better. I bought a long enough VGA cable that I could put it in the pedestal. We also need to put the correct port back on the back of this cabinet. For temporary use, I just had this one here wired up, but I want to go back to the original one that's actually fused, as fuses are important. We also need to put some kind of 5-volt power supply in here. I really don't want to put a switching power supply in here because all I need is 5 volts. I just need 5 volts for the Raspberry Pi and 5 volts for the audio amplifier, and I guess 5 volts for these lightings if I want to light them, but yeah, I don't want to put a switching power supply in here just for 5 volts, but I don't know if I'm going to get enough amps out of a USB 5 volts. I'm going to have to do some math to figure that out, but I don't think it's going to work. Technically, if I want to use the original coin door lights, I also need 12 volts, but I'll see if I have an old switching power supply I don't care about. It should be fine to run just a few amps out of it. Yeah, let's see what I got. So I found this switching JAMA power supply. I'm not sure where it came from. It might have been pulled from a machine that I just replaced it with a new one for reliability's sake. If I was selling a machine or something, I don't know. It's also missing half the screws, but I think we got enough screws for what we need, considering we just need 5 volts, ground, or AC, and I guess I can take the 12-volt one and put it on the earth, but this should work. I'll probably order a strictly 5-volt power supply. It'll probably be more efficient and less old, so it'll probably be slightly more reliable as well. Ultimately, if this power supply blows up, it kills a $30 Raspberry Pi. If I were to put this in an arcade machine and it blew up, it would blow up a multi-$100 arcade PCB. So it has a lot less risk in this machine. Now, some people get rather mad at you when you do this to twist your 2 pairs of wires together, but where I work, I've seen this done literally thousands of times, and I have quite literally never seen a single cable get damaged because of this. Unless you're just sitting here cranking on it, you're not going to damage the cable. It's fine. And then when you're done, you end up with a nice twisted pair of wires. And now, instead of 2 individual wires running messily throughout the cabinet, you have one nice little cable. Now, currently I'm wiring up the speakers because we're going to run those back to the pedestal as well, because we're going to put the amplifier there with the Raspberry Pi. I might as well have all that in one place, so if you need to mess with the Raspberry Pi, you can also just adjust the volume there. It's all in one place. You don't have to open this to mess with the Raspberry Pi and this to mess with the amplifier. That would be really annoying. So I think we're just going to put it all there and just run audio cables. Audio cable is not expensive. We got all of these cables ran through here, so now we're going to bolt on the pedestal, run those wires up into the pedestal, and get everything wired up. I got to clean up, remove some shoot-away parts that are laying around here that this thing was kind of used as a table for. And then we'll probably have to build some side panels for here, because I don't have them, never had them, and also a door for this right here. Okay, so this is going to be difficult to bolt on, considering we're missing half of the panel that would be used to bolt stuff on. So we're going to have to replace the panel that should be right here. As you can see, right here, bolts would come through into those right there. And on this side, it should be the same, but we're missing the board, so we got to replace it. I ended up finding this scrap board that actually already had the angle cut it and everything, so I just cut it to size, so this should work. There we go, the pedestal is bolted on. We have all our wires ran out the coin door here, so we can attach everything up. Now it's time to finish up the pedestal spot, and we should be ready to power this on once we wire up all the electronics in this pedestal. Now I could do the classic trick of just screwing this into the wood like it is, but I think we should probably 3D print a proper mount for these things. While we're waiting for that bracket to 3D print, we need to do some more wiring. We need to wire up the switches from this coin mech. We need to wire them up so they'll go up into the control panel area here, where they'll be able to connect to the USB adapters to then be able to, you know, use it with the Raspberry Pi. So we need to just run some wires around here, all around here, up there. We have to leave enough length on those wires that this door can fully open without those wires being ripped off. Now, most machines would have had two separate coin switches. It has coin switch 1, coin switch 2. We're going to wire them together because ultimately it doesn't really matter for what we're doing. After a few hours on the 3D printer, we're left with this. We can mount the Raspberry Pi there and this thing right here. Now, I didn't design the layout for the Raspberry Pi mount. I went on Thingiverse, found a 3D mounting bracket that somebody had uploaded, and just copied their whole diagram because I figured, they're probably right. They're miles off. I genuinely don't even know how they're this far off. With it centered on this bottom post right here, as you can see, we are miles off from that one. It actually needs to be a little, there we go. They were straight and centered on that. As you can see, we're miles off from that hole, miles off from that hole, and miles off from that hole. They made it too wide every direction. Awesome. How do you even, like, screw it up that bad? Then they added these posts right here in the front to help support it, but they don't actually even come in contact with the board. They're too short. Like, who designed this? Come on, dude. I'm gonna upload this to Thingiverse and not mention the fact that it's nowhere close to actually fitting. So I guess if I ever use this bracket again, I'll have to redesign it, but I'm not gonna sit here and print this again, so I guess we're gonna try and make it work. Well, I managed to get 2 of the screws in. I had to bend it to even do that, though, so I guess, at least my part works. The part that I designed. Let's get this thing mounted in the cabinet, though, and get everything wired up. And there we go. Let me turn on some light here so you can see inside there a little bit better. As you can see, that looks pretty reasonable. We got this spot still open for our coin door. Coin box. I never had one for this machine, so I'll have to see if I have one in my random parts collections. I might. We'll have to find out. I probably don't, but we can probably find something that'll work. So let's, I guess, power this thing on and see if any of the audio amplifiers and any of the controls want to work correctly. Well, it appears our control lights actually still work. The monitor I just heard kick on, there we go, the Raspberry Pi is booting up. So I guess we'll get this thing powered up the rest of the way and reset all these controls, make sure all the buttons are set up properly, and give this thing a test. I finally got these controls working. Apparently I have to have them wired the exact same between the 2 USB controllers. Really stupid, but after I rewired them both to match, it now works. It now actually doesn't reset itself and mess up all the buttons every time I exit a game. But I now have this functional, so I also put the speaker grills back on and the cardboard surround. Unfortunately, I don't think I have the original glass for this. I guess it would have to be plexi because it's bent, but I do have a marquee for it, but it's extreme buck hunting or extreme hunting. But I have the wooden surround that goes up top for the actual marquee. We'll have to come up with something because I'm not going to put extreme hunting on this machine. The monitor keeps doing that, so we're probably going to have to cap kit it. That is very annoying and very much an issue. But it doesn't do it terribly often, usually, so it at least is playable. And there we go. After a ridiculous amount of work, we now have both controls set up. So we're looking pretty good. Eventually, I'll have to get a piece of glass for this, and we'll have to make that door there and put a marquee on it. But for now, it's looking pretty good. And I guess I'll have to play some fighting games for a little while. Shit, I was looking at my glass pile. I do have the piece of plexi from this machine. I don't know why it's green, but I have it at least. These brackets here go on each edge that actually hold the piece of plexiglass in, so we're going to go ahead and mount one of them in, and then put our piece of plexiglass in, and then mount the other one in to fully install, I guess, that piece of plexiglass. Still not sure why it's green. It doesn't go with literally anything. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Now, for the marquee, there's about 30 marquees sitting on top there. None of them go to this machine. They're all just where I stored them, so I guess we're going to have to move those to actual storage now. This is the marquee frame. As you can see, it used to have another marquee on this thing. When I originally tore this apart, I believe I found it was converted a minimum of like 3 or 4 times. It at one point was Mortal Kombat, and then it was obviously the Extreme Hunting, some joystick game, some flight joystick game, which I believe is what this marquee is from, and I believe possibly a few others. It was converted an insane amount of times. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get that light to work. I tried a brand new starter and a brand new bulb, and the best it can do is flicker. For a marquee for this cabinet, I found this original Mortal Kombat marquee that I have, and conveniently, if we look at it compared to this Extreme Hunting, it is slightly smaller, so I don't have to modify it any like they did this Extreme Hunting and put holes in it. So, we might have to make some borders to go around it, but we won't have to modify this whatsoever to install it in this cabinet. So, if I ever, actually need this marquee, I can remove it without damage. However, it is cracked, so it's not like it's mint condition, so it's not that big of a deal anyway, but we're not going to punch any holes in it. Actually, we don't have to make any borders, just using the original border that was here with the Extreme Hunting and the painted on black edges of the plexiglass. We're able to fit inside that and won't have any issues. So let's get this thing mounted on. They taped the original one, and they had this one was originally, the Mortal Kombat was taped with some electrical tape to another marquee, plexiglass, so we're just going to take a little bit of electrical tape, just tape the edges to hold it in place, and we can get this thing screwed on, and we should be done. And there we go. That looks absolutely fantastic. It's not actually mounted on there yet. We'll have to actually build that on. I'll have to find a new spot to store all my million marquees. And once we get a light behind that, that's going to look absolutely fantastic, I think. At least I was able to use one of these million marquees. I kept buying them at auctions for quite a while because I was making these cool marquee boxes, and these things were selling for like nothing. So I bought all the ones that I really could at the time. So I have a whole bunch there. Some of them are reproductions. I have a reproduction Mario Bros. I think that Miss Pac-Man's a reproduction as well. And I think possibly that Arch Rivals is a reproduction. I'm not sure who reproductions Arch Rivals, but somebody did. Okay, so I measured the voltage on the power supply. We're still getting exactly 5 volts out of it, and our Raspberry Pi has absolutely no signs of life when you power it up. Even checked with a thermal camera, and absolutely nothing's even getting slightly warm when you put in power to it. So it is completely dead. So I don't know if our power supply gave it a surge of voltage and killed it, or if it just naturally died of natural causes. That would not be the first Raspberry Pi I've had die of natural causes, but I guess I'll order another Raspberry Pi and a new power supply, because I'm not going to trust that one to kill another one. I don't know if that one killed it, but it's possible. So I'll just order a new power supply. We'll order a proper 5-volt power supply that we needed to actually run this. That really sucks. Was unexpected, but I guess we'll continue with the marquee. I forgot I actually bought a whole bunch of these LED marquee lights, or what I use them for. These are actually under cabinet lights that they sell at Walmart. I really like these because they're a nice LED light that's diffused. I see some people use LED strips under their marquees. I don't like that because it doesn't look good. It's not diffused properly. This should at least be properly diffused, so it'll look somewhat close to what it should have looked like originally. There we go. That's what I want to see. So let's put the marquee back on this thing and see how it looks. And moment of truth. Oh yeah, that looks absolutely amazing. Let's turn off the lights, see how it looks. Looked a lot better if the game actually would boot, but can't have everything we want. Now with the proper lights in the arcade, that's awesome looking. Again, sure would look a whole lot nicer if we could have some video display right about now, but I guess we can't have that. But besides for that, this looks amazing. All we're going to have to do to get it functioning again is replace the power supply and throw in a new Raspberry Pi. I might try repairing this one, but I highly doubt it. I've never been successful at repairing Raspberry Pis. Maybe just the fuse blew, who knows, but that'll be another part. We're also going to have to do some work to this coin door. We'll have to either print a plate for this, put a whole new plate on this, and to fix a bunch of holes. I really hate that they did this to this door. This was a 4-position coin door. These things are actually somewhat valuable because they're kind of rare to have a 4-coin slot coin door, but of course somebody cut it to put a dollar bill acceptor in it and then drilled a bunch of locks, and yeah, it sucks. But if you like what you saw, please leave a like and subscribe. I don't usually do multicade stuff, but it was nice while it lasted.